Hello, everyone. I don't know who all will be joining us live, so we're going to take a few minutes to just introduce ourselves. I'm speaking in the royal we because only I will be on the stream right now, but Jen and Miria are both working on the back side of things. Um, I My name is Amber Flame, and I'm the program director at Hedgebrook. I am so pleased to be here to do an info session with you all. If you have any questions that we don't get to or that haven't come up yet, please put them in the comments. We'll be checking those periodically just to keep track of those kind of things. The whole point here is to hopefully ease the way as you are applying for Hedgebrook. Next year, in 2025, we will have residency time sprinkled throughout the year instead of two chunky cycles. And there's lots of reasons for that, but that means that we're having one application cycle. It will be open for another month, basically, till June, mid June. And these are questions that have come up regularly with us. We will remind you that most of these end up on our FAQ page on our website, so please keep that in mind. Jen, I don't know if Miria is on Instagram, but we are trying to connect to Instagram, and I don't know that we're going to be able to do that this time. So I don't know if she wants to move over. And Alexandra, I see your question. I will get to that one as well. Thank you. Um, okay, so let's see. I'm sorry, looking for one of my mini tabs opened. Okay, so here are some basic things that I would like everyone. Oh no, what am I doing? Listen, y'all, technology today has been a thing. So we are going to take our time and go as slow as we need to get all the information out there. Okay, so just a little background while people are jumping on. I applied, I believe it was 6 years in a row before I got into Hedgebrook. That is a very common story, much more common than those who get in the first time, though that happens too. I say this not to discourage you. I think it is 100% and completely and totally worth it. It was life changing for me. It was life changing for most of the people that have experienced it and have reported back. So I really do encourage you to keep applying and not be discouraged. Um, Remember, the application fee goes up on May 29th. So if you get on it this weekend, then you get that lower application fee. And if you apply again, remember you can apply for a fee waiver. The first 50 fee waiver applications just means you have to be prepared early, essentially. You have to have your application completely ready. A couple of things that I just want to lay out there that come up a lot. Don't get disqualified because you didn't keep it anonymous. Check that you removed your name from the published pieces, from your work samples, from your resumes and your CVs. Make sure that you check and double check. That's a silly, silly reason to get disqualified. And it's an easy way for our readers to scan 800 and something applications and go with the people who took the time to double check. So please do double check. Get support on double checking. There is a lovely and detailed FAQ page on our website. This is your tool, this is your companion, this is your guide. There are links to other people's experiences about applying on those pages. We try to capture every question that gets asked and that we receive and hear and through emails, and we try to capture that all on the FAQ page. So please, please, please check out our FAQ page. Okay, I'm going to jump into some of your questions. Some of them are ones that we've already earmarked to be answered. So, good morning. Some of the residencies consider over 40, 50, and emergent as marginalized as Hedgebrook, or are emergent opportunities given to those who are young. Emergent is emergent. If you are an emerging writer, we welcome you. We are proud to have a blend of emerging and established writers. We want your best work. We want wonderful writers. We want to support them all. So yes, emergent, I would say definitely includes ageism is a thing that people face, especially women. So yes, we encourage you to apply. For the writing samples, can you submit excerpts from different works or do they all have to tie together? That is a great question. Um, whew, this is you can submit whatever you want, and we want your strongest work. I think that it might be helpful in a case like this, where if you want to do a selection, to also include a synopsis. This is where your synopsis is your friend, and where you can say why you're submitting the wide variety of work. I think also it is very hard for us to think of ourselves and our work without the framing of the context in which we write it. But you have to remember that nobody else has that context reading those samples. So the argument maybe for putting something together that is more tied together is that that gives them more context. So if it's in the synopsis or it's through the writing samples that you select, assume that they know nothing about your work, nothing about why you write your work, or the general context around or framework around your work, and try to include that as best as you can. That's what I would suggest. For my writing samples, may I combine 2 or 3 chapters as one document? Yes. So you're worried about the page limit here, Kareen. Page limit matters way more than what chapters. However, if you are jumping around, once again, use that synopsis as a way to explain why you're jumping around and what the bigger framework or context is for the pieces that you select. The graphic novelist questions. Yes, we have lots of questions around graphic novelists. So in the fiction category, are you accepting applications from graphic novelists, one person doing both text, story, and images? Yes, of course, we are accepting graphic novelists. Here is a couple of the kind of questions we get. I'm a graphic novelist. How do I submit my work with or without the drawings? So the biggest answer that I can give you here, the most strong statement I can make is you'll be judged on your writing, not the drawings. This is a writing residency. So use the work sample to show your strongest writing. And then you can include the information about the drawing and the drawing process, the bigger picture in the synopsis and or your artist statement. So use your pages to give as much writing as you can. Let's see. Are the same people reading the application and the writing sample and synopsis? I'm asking about repetition in my app. That is a great, one of the things I wanted to highlight too, Susan. Thank you for that question. Is yes, they are. So you should use every opportunity, every field in the application should be used as a way to go further and deeper into your work, why you write what you write, why it's important, why it's urgent to you. Everything about you should be explained in each of the segments. So don't use repetition if you can. Use every opportunity to talk a little bit more about yourself and your work and why it's exciting. For character count, with or without spaces? Oh, that's a great question. I don't know. Do I know that answer? Jen, I'm looking at you. I will come back to that one. Is there a template or prototype for the artist resume? Ooh, there is not. We don't have a template or prototype, but what I'm going to recommend is there's a couple of artist toolkits available to you. I literally do a Google search for artist resume. That's how I did mine. So I don't think the templating of your resume is nearly as important. It's not like a job application. You want to, have your publications and and it's with spaces. Suzanne checked. It's with spaces. Thank you. Thank you, Susan. So Shauna, it's with spaces. So publications and awards, any relevant experience to your writing career, including workshops, residencies, retreats, conferences, anything that you've dedicated into your creative practice. Let's see, any education that's relevant. Yeah, it's pretty basic structure. Artist Trust in Washington State has a lot of artist toolkit resources, so I definitely encourage you to take advantage of those. Okay, let's see. Template prototype. Yeah, I would say you're not going to get judged by other writers on your template of your artist resume. That's another thing. That's less important than the information on it, and keeping it anonymous. How weighted are CVs? Is it necessary? Great question, Lori. Also, they're not. as weighted as you would think. Partly because we encourage emerging writers. You might not have enough. You don't have to include your CV or resume. We more want to talk about like what we more want you to talk about what you put into your creative practice. Like what work have you put into your creative practice? So I love the applications that kind of frame it as sort of like how do you keep your creative practice informed? Like how do you engage with learning from your fellows? Yes, it is optional to include a resume. If you are writing a memoir that includes poetry, should you apply in both genres? If applying to more than one genre, do you need to set two sets of answers to application questions? Okay, so if you want to apply in more than one genre and be considered, oh, I don't know the answer to that one either. Let me see. I'm looking at Jen. Jen, can you private chat me if I know, or are you answering down here? CV should be anonymous. Everything in your application should be anonymous. Sorry, I just got that. Let's see, memoir that includes poetry. So this is complicated as we have more multi-genre writers. I would say always, always, always look for the 10 to 20 pages, whatever you're submitting, that is the strongest writing that you've ever done. The strongest writing that you've ever done. Make your writing sample the strongest writing that you've ever done. And so if your strongest writing is in nonfiction, or the strongest writing you've ever done is in poetry, then apply in that genre. The thing to think about is when you're applying in nonfiction, nonfiction writers is who's going to read your work, right? So if they don't know how to read the poems, which is why we divided the genres, because a lot of nonfiction writers, fiction writers, don't necessarily know how to do anything more than appreciate or not appreciate a poem. And we got that feedback a lot, actually. Like, what do we base this on? What rubric is there for judging poetry? And it's like, well, poets know. And so that's part of why we split the genres. And the encouragement with the writing sample, let the writing sample inform what genre, and then use the artist statement to talk about how you incorporate poetry and what you're doing to learn, to like craft your poems and why you incorporate poetry. But I would suggest that you pick the strongest writing sample you can put together and let that inform what genre you apply in. Da, 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 da. Can you say more about this question? Tell us about your current work as an advocate and or where you are best suited to begin joining Hedgeworks community and the movement towards equal voice. Yes, I will be happy to. So this is where we want you to tell us what else you do, essentially. This is where the readers and then the judges will be looking at like, are you a mentor? Are you a teacher? Are you an advocate or an activist in other spaces? I think that this is something, this is a beautiful space to talk about the things that maybe are invisible as a writer. For instance, I do a lot of, I do a lot of things in prose, but I'm known as a poet, right? And so I might be applying in poetry because that would be my strongest writing sample and genre to apply in. But I would want to use this time to talk about where I do these writing workshops to develop storytelling and craft among incarcerated women or something like that. Also, if you have a residency at Hedgework, you become one of our alum, and our alum is who we build our alumni are who we build our programs with. And so our writers conference, our radical craft retreats, our workshops, all of those are things that we do with our alum. And so this is also a chance to get us excited as your fellow alum are reading these applications. It's a chance to get us excited about, wow, this is somebody who really does all these other things in community too. Or is learning in these other ways. I mean, people have added some really fascinating things here. So somebody who does policy work, somebody who is a doctor or a lawyer and is working in a completely different field, tech. We've had tech writers, journalists, and that might not be what you're applying in or what your creative project as you think of it is. That's a chance for us to learn a little bit more about that. Oh, sorry. Jen's been messaging me on my phone, which I have not been looking at. So hold on just a second. Let's see. We'll come back to some of those questions. You said you applied several times before being accepted. This is so encouraging. However, I do feel like I've already sent my best work. And did you change your material in subsequent? So, as my work got stronger, definitely. So, over the years, certainly my work got stronger. If you know you have a really strong work sample, the readers change, right? You're very unlikely to be read by the same person again this year. I would definitely say that my applications were pretty similar. Like, to be blunt, what happened the year I got in was that my mom had died. And so I was writing from a place of real raw vulnerability and grief. And I think that really registered with the readers and the judges that year in a way that, like, my writing hadn't, or my urgent reason why hadn't. There is this sort of, like, within the mythology of Hedgebrook, there's this idea that you get the residency when it's time for you to have the residency, and that's when it welcomes you. Also, Nicole, there's a great article called "Knocking on Hedgebrook's Door." It's one of our blogs on our website, and so many people, 11, 13 times. Now, I'm not saying we're not manifesting that. We're not manifesting that for you, but it is true. It's worth it. It's also just a numbers game. Unfortunately, there's only 6 cottages. There's only so many residencies a year. And there's more and more applications, except for sometimes there's less and less applications, but generally there's a lot of applications for a small number of spots. Once again, CVs, resumes, everything in your application should be anonymous. Take your name. Make sure even you download A-Flame-resume. Take the A-Flame and take your name out of everything that you are putting in your application. That should be another double check that you do just before you hit submit. Go through and say, just for anonymous, did I list my name anywhere in my artist statement? Did I talk about anything that is like, it's clear who I am? And it happens still that people recognize people, but they shouldn't recognize you because you put your name on something. If our resume details much of our advocacy work but does not have robust publication history, is that info useful to include? I mean, I think it's always useful to use another opportunity. The resume is optional, but if you have a resume that's like, look, I don't have a whole lot of publications, but partly it's because I do all this work. I'm out here leading workshops, I'm out here advocating, I'm out here being an activist, and that informs my work. I would say if there's a tie that you can make between the two, then yes, and include it. Use every opportunity in the application to talk about yourself, your work, why it's important, why it's urgent, and why Hedgebrook is the place for you. Can we apply with the same work sample for different psych? Yes. So just to reiterate that one, yes, you can absolutely. If you know you have, like, you polished up that work sample and this is the best representation of your work. I mean, I would always encourage you to go back and read it again, because a year later, your eyes are different, right? But if you know that's the work sample that is your best work, then yes, keep applying. And think about maybe how your artist statement might shift, or how you might get a little bit more clear on what it means to have an urgency around Hedgebrook, or other ways in which you can, like, sort of re-engage with these questions. Thank you for dropping those links. Knocking at Hedgebrook's Door. If my strongest writing sample is based around my name, should I redact it? Oh, so I've come across this because I use, like, Amber Flame is my name, and A-Flame and Flame. I definitely have teetered this line myself. If you actually say your name in it, you should redact your name. Yes. That's all I have to say about that. The actual name should be redacted. If it then isn't your strongest writing sample, I would hope that you have another option, or another portion of that writing sample that you could submit. But yes, you can definitely redact the actual name and then keep the rest of the story. Can you submit work that has been published in your application? Yes. Remove, do not scan it. Do not include a hyperlink. Give us your Word document, your PDF original for published, and you can list it as one of the things that's been published as well. Can you expand a bit on the question? Briefly describe the project you'd be working on while in a Hedgebrook residency. So, Anna, this is a beautiful place for people, especially if you're just branching in to a multi-genre project, or you're trying to do something new to yourself, new for yourself, not something you're not known for. That's where you get the readers, you get the judges excited about what else you're doing creatively, or if it's, or it might be if you're like, here's a bit of my memoir and I'm going to come to Hedgebrook and work on my memoir and finish it. That's just also the chance to say, I have a job, like I have a deadline with a agent. I have another reason, some other reason why it's urgent to be at Hedgebrook and finish this now. That's a chance to dive into that question. That's where you would dive into those answers. What you want to work on at Hedgebrook, what we say is like, once you're here, you can work on whatever you want. So it doesn't have to be like, and now I'm committing that I'm going to work on this poetry project once I get to Hedgebrook. Once you get to Hedgebrook, you can work on whatever you want. Or you could sleep and eat cookies and walk in the garden and cut yourself some flowers. Totally all legit. It's your time. But that space in your application is a chance to tell us about why you're injecting poetry into your memoir, or why it's a graphic novel, or why you get excited about the illustration part of the graphic novel, and you get to go a little bit, you get to nerd out a little bit about your work around not just the writing of the graphic novel, but the drawing of the graphic novel. And you're going to spend time at Hedgebrook developing those drawings. Anything you can do around getting everyone else excited about what you're going to do with your time at Hedgebrook is great. It's just another chance to talk about, like, I also do these other things. Like, I think somebody was talking about making videos to go with their poetry, and that they especially wanted to be at Hedgebrook because of the land and wanting to shoot within the in the natural settings. And that was it was awesome. It was exciting. And for alum who've been at Hedgebrook, it resonated with them because they could imagine how beautiful these poems would be being in that setting. So yes, it's just every opportunity to talk a little bit about what you're working on and why you're excited about it. Can we name organizations or affiliations on our CV resume, even if it potentially gives away our identities? They should not be searching you online. We, in fact, instruct them multiple times not to search, not to look you up online, not to research whether you've actually got that thing published or anything like that. Hold on, you can chat me here. Just having Miria jump on the back end. So they should not be looking you up. We expect that there will be things that you're, attached to that are recognizable if they were to search you. Don't worry about making that anonymous. Just make you anonymous. In terms of anonymity, can I use the title of a published book I wrote? Yes. Yes, as long as you don't use your name. Should we list non-writing work experiences, or should it be focused on... So, I don't know about you, but if you've lived lots of lifetimes, you might have multiple resumes or a need for multiple resumes, depending on what circle you're operating in. So I would encourage you, unless there's a direct tie to why you write or what you write, that you keep your CV focused on your writing and arts experience. Simply because it can veer, like anything around teaching, writing, anything around mentorship or advocacy work, any education that you've received around writing, or being in community of writers or community of creatives. That's all stuff I would include, but I would keep it pretty focused. Unless somewhere else in your application you want to talk about why it's important that you do this other thing that is not necessarily tied. Once again, the CV is optional, and it's another chance to get to know you. So if you're like, I want you to also know this thing about me, that I have extensive background in basket weaving, then yes, include it. If unpublished work, you also only have 2 pages, by the way, in your CV. 2 pages. That too. If unpublished work in the writing sample is accepted for publication after the application is submitted, should we? Nope. Congratulations! Woo! We're so excited for you. In fact, we hope to one day have an option to for you all to have that opportunity through Hedgebrook as well for your writing sample to be considered for publication. We're working on it. It might get there someday. But no, you don't need to like unsubmit the work or anything like that. It does not need to be unpublished work. It can be published work. In case you missed that, you can submit your work sample with work that's been published out in the world. Just remove your name. Don't photocopy or scan it from the website. No hyperlinks, anything like that. Give us your original. Just to clarify, as long as one highlights in the synopsis that we are going to use an ellipses to include chapters that are not 1, 2, 3, for example, but say the first chapter and then the 5th chapter. I wouldn't even use ellipses. I'd just say one chapter, chapter 1 and chapter 5 and chapter 3, or whatever you want to do. And in the synopsis, say, here's, here's the broader context of the story, and I picked these 2 because. That's more what I would recommend. I hope that makes sense. Sorry about the notifications going off here. As someone with little formal writing experience, I'm unclear on what I should include in the synopsis and how that differs from what I include. Okay, so Razak, a synopsis is not necessary. It's not required. Let's see. So a synopsis is really like, it's a summary of the bigger context of your work sample, your writing sample. So if you submit 20 pages of a novel and there are 20 pages that hop all over the place, your synopsis would be where you say the novel in brief is about these things. I'm including these chapters in which you meet character blah, 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 and a significant moment of action in character blah, blah, blah. That's what a synopsis would be good for. With poetry, a synopsis might be a chance where you say the broader scope of this manuscript or this collection of poetry deals with these themes, and I'm including a selection. Like somebody asked if they could be not tied to each other. Maybe you're including a selection to show the range that the whole collection will include. And so you don't have a lot of repeating themes in your poems. You might use a synopsis to explain how they repeat in the larger framework of the work. I hope that makes sense. And please follow up if I'm not answering clearly, please follow up. Okay, let's see. Should the artist statement be double spaced? I wouldn't double space it. You're just using up one of your characters. Has character limits. It's answered in a series of questions and it has character limits. So do not double space anything within the application. I worked with a co-author on my latest book, and these pages are among my strong work samples. Some pages are all my work, but the basis is a collaboration. Would this be okay to include? Glennis, I would absolutely say it's totally fine to include and use a synopsis to explain that. I would make sure that the pages are like that's one of the things to explain, like how much of it is your work. And if you can, I would use pages that are like all 90% all of your work. Like if you worked on certain segments or they came from your area of expertise, or so not places where you were the developmental support to your co-author, but the places where you were the generator and author of the work as much as possible. And remember, you can submit maybe a portion of that and a portion of something else that you wrote on your own, just to show that you do this alone. For the description on the work we'll be working on at Hedgebrook, do you want like a cover blurb or more of a breakdown or outline of the work? Lori, I don't want anything. I'm not the one reading the applications. So if you can, at some point with your application, like take a step back and imagine that you've read 30 of these. And then comes this application, right? What you want to do in this description of the thing you'll be working on at Hedgebrook is get us excited about thinking about you in a cottage, creating something in a new way. Be like, wow, Lori's already doing these things. This writing sample is spectacular. I love it. And check out this project, because I will tell you when the readers and or the judges start talking to each other about like, and yeah, I'm really excited also about what they're working with when they have no sample to base it on, but they know that there's this other project in the works in the creative mind of a woman identified writer. That's an exciting moment, and those stand out. Those applications stand out for sure. So I wouldn't think, you're not selling, you're selling us on your excitement, if that makes sense. What makes you nerd out about the thing that you want to work on at Hedgebrook? Nerd out on it. And then, so yeah, I don't know what else like the breakdown or an outline of the work. It's if you know specifically what you're going to work on, and just say I have a plan, and if I'm aiming for 2 weeks because I'm going to do this and this, like wow, congratulations, you are a different personality type than me, and I respect and honor that. And things might change, right, once you get on the land. So I think it's one of those nebulous. There's no hard and fast answer to that question, Lori. The main point is to use that space to get us excited about what you're going to be doing at Hedgebrook. How are the different parts of the application, writing sample, artist statement, community experience, etc., weighed in the evaluation? Yeah. So it changes, and Miria, please jump in if I have this wrong. In the first round, the biggest weight goes to the writing sample. So the writing sample and attendant thing, synopsis or anything like that. So what we do first is prioritize, like we want the best writers. When it goes into the second round, then the weight shifts a little bit more evenly into looking at the artist statement and the writing samples. And this is where it's being read by a guest alone judge in that genre. And then in the final round is where we pull in those things that really stand out around community experience, diversity, inclusion, like what they've done, what kind of advocacy work or mentorship work you might have done. That's where that starts to come up in more even weight. They're all considered through all 3 rounds, but it definitely is heavily weighted on the writing sample, and then moving into the artist statement, and then sort of like the gleaning and refining happens around diversity of voice. And diversity of voice does not just mean cultural diversity. It means literally I'm writing about something nobody's ever even heard of before, or I'm writing about something from a space of futuristic something, or whatever, that something that excites them that they've never heard before are the ones that stand out at that point. Or from a voice that they have, like, I've never heard a story from that perspective before. Those are the ones that really also stand out. So we try to make it so that it shifts, but that each part of it is considered. If my writing sample will be included in the project I will be working on, if I get should that be stated? Yes. I mean, you don't have to state it in the synopsis. I would just state it in the what I will be working on piece of it. I don't think you need to re-say it. Lenita, I'm going to come back to you all in on that one. Actually, that's a great question. Thank you for asking me. Okay, reminder, FAQ page, FAQ page, FAQ page. It's detailed. We will, if there are questions here that we haven't considered and put on the page, we will be gleaning and looking to add those questions in. Let me see, I've written in blank genre, but I'm working in blank genre. I'm a graphic novelist, anonymous, use every opportunity. Oh, yes, okay. Here's some things that have come up. Just 2 other notes, and then whatever questions you all have. Remaining, apply with a name you want to be known by. Your legal name is not necessary. If you write under a pen name, you can apply under that pen name. Okay? If you write under a pen name, you can apply under that pen name. If you have not yet legally changed your name for some reason, you can apply under the name that you have chosen for yourself. And you can start from the beginning of your slide room account making process through to the end, you can be known by the name you want to be known by. And let me encourage you to do that from the beginning. We can figure out the legal name another time if necessary, but it's not necessary for this application. We do not provide feedback on applications, nor can we give you any notes from the readers. It is completely an anonymous thing. They do it under the guarantee that their comments remain anonymous to even each other, except for what they share in the adjudication process with each other. So we do not provide feedback or notes, but we will let you know what round your application got to. Okay, can you tell us again who the readers are for each round? The readers are, we do an open call to our alumni. So the readers are alum. In fact, it's one of the steps to coming back as a guest alum judge is to read applications for Hedgebrook. And so most of our alum at some point or another read applications for Hedgebrook. And we pair them. So it's reader pairs, read every application. And they're in batches, and the batches, there's selections from, not every reader pair reads every application, so there's a variety of voices, a variety of eyes on things. Let's see. So the readers are alum and sometimes stakeholders, like often Evie Wilson Lingblom, our librarian, has read for us before, or our Creative Advisory Council members, so somebody who maybe hasn't come to Hedgebrook through a residency but is deeply connected to Hedgebrook. And they usually are people who read several times, often. 2 questions. 1, should I be careful about sharing my age? 2, so much of my why and advocacy involves the impact of being my family's primary caregiver for 15 plus years. Should I be careful about sharing this? And do you have any words of insight or encouragement around this? Oh my goodness. Oh, well, no. I think at Hedgebrook you should not worry about sharing your age, whether you're young or old. You do have to be over a certain age to come to Hedgebrook. I believe that's 18, Miria. Do I have that right? 18. But we've had, we love our elders. We love our older folk. We are definitely going to be wanting to talk to you about accessibility, of course, and needs like that if you get a residency. So I don't think there's any reason you should be afraid to share your age or careful about sharing your age. I think that that could be a really beautiful reason why Hedgebrook, why now. And I think that being a caregiver, so many of the people who really have their hearts and lives broken open by this residency are ones who have spent so much time as caregiver, who then come and experience what it means to be given care, maybe for the first time ever or the first time in a long time. And so I think that it would be a really beautiful experience. And I think it would be very important for you to talk about that advocacy work and that why that you spent this time being a caregiver. Definitely lean into that and share what it means to apply for time to focus on your own creative process while being in this role in a sort of, it sounds like, fairly permanent way. How do we know what round our past applications reached? Do we send an email? No, Nicole. So when notifications go out, the notifications will include what round your application reached. You may have addressed this, but the writing samples need not align with intent. They do not, Therese. So yes, we did talk about this quite a bit. Your project that you're working on while in residency can be literally anything you want, something really exciting, something brand new, something that is not your best writing sample because you're just learning it or whatever it is. Get us excited about what you might work on in residency, and it does not have to be the thing that you apply for. If I include poetry in a nonfiction in my application, understanding that it won't be read by poetry folks, and explain why in the synopsis. No, you won't be disqualified. You definitely won't be disqualified. I think that the synopsis is a beautiful thing to include and to explain why, and to explain maybe a little bit of giving a little bit of context for reading the poetry. Like not just like it's included here because I'm both a memoirist and a nonfiction writer and a poet, but also why they're inextricably linked, what form, if any, like if form if form informed what poems you included or what poems you use in this writing project. I definitely would use a synopsis to talk about, give that context. Okay. Any other questions lingering out there? Just a reminder, we have a big FAQ page. It's growing every day, it feels like. We try to capture anything that hasn't been addressed or that comes through in emails, comes through in these. We have two older info sessions like this. One is about 45 minutes, I believe, and the other one's about an hour because a lot of questions come up. And so we're going to try to remember to do this regularly when applications are open, so that you don't have to go back and watch those. But there's information on those too, also just encouragement that might be helpful. Some days I feel a lot more encouraged, and some days I feel less encouraged. So maybe it'll be even more exuberant in encouraging you to apply, apply, apply. It's worth it. And Lenita asked about that. This may be a strange question, but how did your residency inform your work, life, etc.? I sense it was worth the 6 application attempts. Okay, so yes. Wow. My life changed. Everything changed. Hedgebrook was the beginning of true recognition from my peers and from the literary world, whatever that means, that I was a writer, coming from a performance space. It was, uh, yeah, it was the first sort of rubber stamp approval, and that means something, especially in poetry. It opened doors. It opened doors through community. I knew so many Hedgebrook alum before I came, and they all said the same, like, keep applying. It's so worth it. Keep applying. Um, so I think it also put me among people who were so much better than I was, so much more disciplined, or just wise, or I mean, yeah, even the project that emerged. I just just celebrated a year of my book being out, that I wrote at Hedgebrook. I'm looking at it right now. Um, Came out a year ago, and it took 9 years. But the book that I came to Hedgebrook with, that this was gonna be, maybe, it was a mess. I'm so lucky I had my crane crew, as we call them, crane. We call ourselves the Cranes. Because they were like, maybe this instead of that. And I was like, oh, yeah. So, I mean, I just love placing myself among brilliant, especially women, and learning and just absorbing and learning. And I feel like Hedgebrook was the beginning of me having opportunity to do that. Um, it was definitely worth it. There are places I keep applying to that I still get a no from. But I keep applying there too because I know it will be worth it. Every residency, every retreat, every workshop has drastically changed and shifted my life. I don't have much time. And so when I do it, I like, there's so much that goes into preparing to go on retreat. I'm a caregiver. I'm a single mom, and I have a full-time job, and I've always have at least a full-time job, if not multiple jobs, right? So there's, they're so precious to me. They're so precious to me. And Hedgebrook taught me how wonderfully precious it can be. And I think what I pull away from it still is that when I have other opportunities, there's a standard that I meet for myself, at least, around what I'm going to give myself around residency. So allow myself to be in a passive creative state, and to rest and to nap and to eat cookies if that's what I need to do. Allow myself to catch up on things like updating my website and my resume and my CV, like the allowing my mind to rest and to be like, oh, let's get some of those nagging little tasky things out of the way and still have time for a delicious dinner with my friends who are going to inspire me with their things. And then I go away and I go, oh my gosh, what does it mean to spend a day writing a poem? I had never even considered spending a day writing a poem until I met Brianne Janae in residency and was like, and they were like, I spent all day writing this poem. And I'm like, a singular poem? What? And so it taught me patience. It taught me grace. I'm continuing to learn, and now I get to work with so many alum to build these other programs. And I think Mary is going to drop the program calendar in the chats, in the comments now. We have some really, really exciting things happening, and I get to continue to learn because I'm a part of this community. And we get to expand it into like participants who come to the writers conference or come to a retreat or something like that. And so I know it's a global community, and you get to be a part of it. And like, let's be frank, it's an elite residency. It means something to have earned this residency. So yes, it's worth it. And just like anything else you have to work for, it's worth it. And what you're working for is to learn how to better talk about why you write what you write, what you're called here to contribute to the world, who you are, and why it's important to be a part of community. You learn to talk about that better by practicing. So I keep applying to things that I haven't gotten into yet, because every time I think I get better at it. I get better at saying, this is what I'm saying, and this is why it's important. Yeah. So that's my long-winded answer. Okay, I'm going to look for a couple more questions. You are so more than welcome. Let's see. Thank you for that. I have managed not to count how many times I've applied. Just keep applying. Just keep applying. Yep. Yes, it doesn't mean you should stop. If you're an artist but your writing doesn't focus on the art, does it help to include that somewhere in the application? Given that I think you totally should. I think you totally should. That's my opinion. I think that would be, see how I lit up? I think that would, like, people be like, you do what else? It's sort of when I talk about like, oh, also I'm making a film. People are like, wait, what? That definitely will help you stand out, right? To say I also am a visual artist or I'm a, basket weaver. It has nothing to do with my writing, but it's really, really cool that I went and studied this thing here. Or the Vipassana silent retreat leader, somebody was, and talked about the experience of being without words with so many people. Cool things. Cool things. And thanks, Jan. It is a beautiful book. Thank you. Very proud of it. Apocrypha, available where you find your poetry. Yeah, you are more than welcome. We are looking for questions. We will put them on the FAQ. You have almost a little less than a month left to apply. Another week before the application fee goes up. So get your application in. We are a small team. We can't answer very many questions because we are constantly working, I promise. But we will be looking for things that, like, check the FAQ page. Check the FAQ page. I promise. If it's not there, it should be there. And tell us, it's not there. Can you add this one? And we will. You are all more than welcome. We're so excited to see your applications come in and to see you on the land next year in 2025. All right, y'all. Thank you so much.